I'm Katie White, and this is By the Book, Enhancing Relationships Through Literature. My mission here at By the Book is to connect you with books that foster personal growth and strengthen relationships with family and friends. I believe the best relationship advice is already out there, and I'm here to help you discover it. Today I have my friend Savannah Nelson with me. Savannah and I met through a mutual friend at BYU, Idaho. Savannah and I both graduated with a Bachelor's of Marriage and Family Studies at BYU, Idaho last month in April, and she is now my roommate. She is a published author. I'll link her writing in the show notes. And is currently working a social work job and deciding if she wants to become a therapist or maybe a forensic interviewer. She loves spending time with the people she loves. She loves to read. She also went on the New York trip to the United Nations that a lot of the other guests on the podcast have also went on with me. Her and I were roommates there on the trip, and we had such a good time, we decided to be roommates after graduation. So without further ado, my roommate, Savannah.
Wow. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
It's a joy and a pleasure to have you here. Okay, Savannah, tell the audience which book you chose to talk to us about today and why.
Okay, so I have brought The Coddling of the American Mind, and the little subtitle is How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. This is by Greg Lukianoff. I'm not totally sure if that's how you pronounce his last name, but Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt, who I think you've had a couple of people talk about some of his books before on your podcast. Mm-hmm. So, popular guy.
Him. Okay, perfect. Well, tell us a little bit about the authors, whatever you know about them.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I don't know much about Greg Lukianoff. But Jonathan Haidt, he's written a couple of books, one of them being The Righteous Mind. So he talks a lot about, he's a psychologist that focuses a lot, I guess more currently he focuses a lot more on technology and what technology and smartphones are doing to the minds of people, as more importantly are more focused on the minds of teenagers and children. And so with this book, Greg Lukianoff and Haidt talk a lot about how the world that we're in today, people are not okay with varying opinion. The idea of freedom of speech and freedom of opinion, differing opinion, is becoming less and less popular. And so, that was just the focus of this one.
Perfect. Yeah, I just started reading The Anxious Generation by him this week.
Good stuff.
He is so awesome. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this book. I haven't read this one. Yeah. So I have heard a lot of good things about it, though, even from, professors outside of our major have brought it up. So, Alrighty. So how were you introduced to the book?
So I had heard of the name before, but I had a child development professor, not even directly to me, but just talk about some of the principles that he learned from it in one of my classes that I took from him. And then I had heard it from a couple of different professors, and I was like, okay, I'm interested enough in this. And so I bought it and, I don't know, got into it.
Love it. Okay, so now we've gotten to the part of the podcast where Savannah is going to teach us about a main principle the book teaches or some of her main takeaways and how that relates to relationships. So I'll let you take it from here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mentioned it briefly already, but I guess just an overview of the book in general. Something that Lukianoff and Haidt are concerned about enough to write this book was the idea of safetyism, overprotection, people not being willing or able or capable of taking risks anymore or experiencing quote unquote hardships in their lives. So a lot of people these days are uncomfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so they don't want to have any adversity or any pushback or, controversy, for lack of a better word, in their lives. They just want their lives to be nice and happy and perfect, which okay, yeah, all of us kind of want nice little happy perfect lives. But that I don't know that that's necessarily a realistic perspective to have, because as we all know, whether you're 5 years old or you're 95 years old, life has its challenges, and we can either accept those challenges or we can, kind of suffer through them, I guess, because you're getting through them one way or the other, right?
They're gonna come.
Mm-hmm. So in this book, the authors talk about 3 quote-unquote untruths, and so I'll just list them, but I'm going to be talking about one untruth today.
Okay.
So the first one is the untruth of fragility. What doesn't kill you makes you weaker. The second one is the untruth of emotional reasoning. Always trust your feelings. And then the third one is the untruth of us versus them. Life is a battle between good people and evil people. So the one I want to talk about today is the untruth of fragility. What doesn't kill you makes you weaker. So I don't know. I guess first, Katie, what is your experience with, or what is your perspective on failure, like insults, painful experiences in general? How do you feel about them? I
mean, I feel like at first glance, definitely want to like avoid, getting hurt or being in pain. But I think that's something I've learned through looking back at different hard times in my own life, is that those are the times when I grow and when I become the better version of myself that I am today than I was 5, 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I guess for me, I'm not so much afraid of hard things. I just have to choose which hard things I want to participate in and which things are going to help me grow the most, because I don't think that they can be avoided. Mm-hmm. So I think it's definitely a perspective change over the past probably like decade or so of my life, of figuring out that hard things are something that can be overcome, and that I can be better through the hard things if I choose that. Mm-hmm. I do think that it's a choice, that you have to like make the choice to be better. Otherwise, I think that it can just destroy you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that my perspective on that aligns pretty closely to what you're saying. And I think the way that you handle challenges, like whatever challenges that come about in your life, is something that I really admire about you, because you're like, okay, well, maybe this isn't my favorite, this kind of stinks, but you know what am I going to do? I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to get through it. Yeah. And maybe you want to get through it a little bit faster than it actually happens, but I don't know. But It's just something I admire about you, how you handle life's challenges.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But I want to start off with a quote here from the book. It says, teaching kids that failures, insults, and painful experiences will do lasting damage is harmful in and of itself. Human beings need physical and mental challenges and stressors, or we deteriorate. Isn't that interesting? Like, we need physical and mental challenges and stressors, or we deteriorate. So, I'm sure you've heard the example before, but just kind of using an example from my own life. I broke my ankle when I was like in 5th grade or something. I jumped off of a rock. I took a running start and jumped off a 12-foot rock onto solid ground, broke both sides of my ankle, of my right ankle, and then sprained a different part of the ankle. It was bad. It was really bad. Ugh. And so they had to put me into a full leg cast for 3 weeks because they didn't want me moving my knee at all because the break was so bad. Thankfully, I didn't need surgery.
Just for your ankle?
Yeah. It was brutal. There's more to the story, but I had a full leg cast for 3 weeks because it was so bad and they didn't want me moving my knee. And then I had a knee length cast after the 3 weeks for 4 weeks. So 7 weeks of my life, I had a cast on my leg. And so right after we switched to the knee length cast, I found that the muscles in my thigh and my knee had like atrophied, deteriorated because I hadn't used them for 3 weeks. And so it was actually really painful. I still needed to use crutches, even though I had a walking cast now. I couldn't use the muscles in that leg because they just weren't being used. They weren't experiencing stress, and they weren't experiencing movement like they were used to. And so there was one time, this was back before you could pause TV. And so I'm not that old, but I am old enough for that. But I remember watching this TV show, and I went... the commercial came on. I went to the bathroom because I needed to go to the bathroom, and I was coming back, and I was using my crutches, and I heard that my TV show came on, and so I was like trying to rush down the hallway on my crutches.
We love the commercial break, potty breaks.
I was trying to rush down the hallway on my crutches to get back to the couch in time to watch my show, and I don't know what happened, but I tripped in the hallway, and I like hurt the leg that like all the muscles had atrophied and like they were weak, and like it was painful to move this leg. So I was using the crutches. I had hurt myself again. And so it was just kind of a lesson to myself of, okay, I can't go all in on this leg quite yet. But I do need to be putting enough stress on this leg so that it can get back to a good enough health to where it was before the break even happened. And so I don't know. I think with a lot of situations in life, we want to avoid the break at all. But if the break happens, then what are you going to do? Okay, you do have to take some rest, and you have to take the necessary precautions to make sure that the health of the limb is okay. But you also need to be able to remember that it's going to take a little bit of time to get back to the same point that you were at before. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't put in the work or that the work isn't worth it. Because imagine if I never walked on that leg again. This happened, I was in 5th grade, so I must have been like 11 or 12. That was like 16, 17 years ago for me. So imagine what my leg would look like now, or what my body would be like now if I never learned to walk again on that leg. So stresses and challenges are going to happen in life, and we may experience breaks and hurt and pain that we've never experienced before, and it may set us back, but it's through that journey of healing that we become stronger and better. And I was able to regain the strength and the muscles in my thigh and my knee, and then eventually in my ankle once that second cast was taken off, through walking around and through swimming. My family, rather than physical therapy, we did regular physical therapy, we did swimming. And so there was different types of stressors put onto my body so that I was able to build up those muscles, right? So, if we shield ourselves from the hard lessons, at the end of the day, the things that make us a little uncomfortable or a little nervous or apprehensive because they're unfamiliar, or they're challenging the assumptions that we made or the conclusions that we've come to. If we do that all of the time, then our brains begin to atrophy, like that muscle begins to deteriorate, and we won't be able to like handle life's trials and challenges in the way that we could have if we were making efforts to work through it, right? Or even if we were able to work through them before. So if I experience some trial in my life and I just let it consume me and destroy me, then I'm not going to be able to withstand the next trial that comes around. Because one, I didn't deal with the baggage that came along with that first trial, and I didn't learn the necessary skills to help me get through it. And now I'm just like I've set myself up for even more failure when the next trial comes around, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And so I think something that each person has to come to understand in their own lives is that risks and stressors are natural and unavoidable parts of our lives. And parents and teachers need to be helping their children prepare and develop like those innate abilities to grow and learn from hard experiences. And so what are we actually going to do to our kids if we don't let them experience a little bit of risk and a little bit of stress in their lives? And so, of course, I'm not saying, like, let's let the 2-year-old go swimming by herself. We're not doing that. But, like, why not let the 5 or 6-year-old climb the tree and experience the little bit of risk climbing higher in the tree and the stress that comes with figuring out how to get down. And so you may be standing right underneath the tree, guiding them down, telling them, try this step, hold them to this branch, this or that. Or you may be inside just watching from the window. I don't know. But our children need to be able to experience life and the risks of life within reason. And protecting them, quote unquote, protecting them from that is not actually protecting them. It's actually causing them more harm, more damage.
There's a lot of good stuff in what you were just talking about. But it's just like, one of the things that I was reminded of is, as a little kid, my mom would always make me, like, call to make appointments and stuff like that. And so I was never scared of it. I was never scared to, like, call and schedule a haircut or call and see if, the thing that I left was still at whatever place or whatever the situation was. And this one time, I think I was probably like 11, I was hanging out with my friend, and we were going to her haircut appointment, and we were running little bit late, and so her mom, like, handed her her phone and was like, hey, call and let them know that we're going to be a few minutes late, but that we're going to be there. And she's like, no, I can't, like, I don't want to. And I just remember looking at her like, are you for real? Like, you won't just, like, make the phone call? And so I was like, I'll just do it. So I just, like, took the phone, called, and I said that I was my friend. I was like, hey, this is so-and-so. We're going to be a few minutes late, but we'll be there. And she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing that for me. And so looking back, I should have just made my friend do it. But from my, like, 11-year-old perspective, I didn't realize the gift that my parents had given me by requiring certain things of me. And I think that confidence has brought me a long way. I think that's kind of like what you were talking about, just like how I approach certain things in my life. I feel like that is really been instilled, like, by my parents, by them requiring things of me, by, like, making me make the phone calls, making me go up and ask for a fork at the restaurant, like, whatever it was, like, ordering my own food, just, like, simple stuff like that. Climbing trees too, like, I remember climbing trees a bunch as a kid. But yeah, I just love that. And it just also reminds me would you read the quote again? The atrophy quote?
The whole thing or that last part?
I think the whole thing.
Okay. Teaching kids that failures, insults, and painful experiences will do lasting damage is harmful in and of itself. Human beings need physical and mental challenges and stressors, or we deteriorate.
Yeah. So just going off of that, like, I think one thing that God did on purpose was create our bodies in a way that mirrors mental and spiritual health as well. Like, for example, with, like, exercising, like with your leg, right? Like, you lost a ton of muscle because you weren't using it. So, like, same thing with, like, going to the gym. Like, I was on vacation for a week, and I was, like, walking a lot, but I wasn't lifting weights anymore for the week I was gone. Come back, and I just go right back to lifting weights again, and my whole body is so sore right now. And so if we do that, like, with mental health, with spiritual health, with, like, whatever else it is in our life, if we get out of those habits that are creating the discomfort that consequently create comfort in our lives, that we're going to lose that, and it's going to be more uncomfortable to get back to where we were. And do you really want to spend your whole entire life just, like, getting to where you were and then, like, breaking your leg again and then getting back to where you were and breaking your leg again? Like, no, you don't want to, like, keep breaking your leg forever. You want to get to a place where you can keep growing exponentially rather than just, like, trying to get back to a baseline. So I think that's something that came to my mind too, of, like, it's not just about, like, maintaining what we have, but creating more strength, and because of the discomfort that we have to create more discomfort in our lives in order to grow. To, like, get comfortable in the discomfort you're in isn't enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I I think that goes back to parents. Parents need to be teaching their children that, you know, discomfort is okay. You know, like, learning challenges are okay. It helps you become more than who you currently are. Mm-hmm. And I like what you said about your parents, like, requiring something of you. You know what I mean? And I think that builds, like, the stamina, and it builds the independence and motivation for children to be able to do that on their own moving forward. Look at you. You called that hair salon for your friend because your parents weren't even there. Nobody asked you to make that phone call, right. But you were able to do it because you had learned the necessary skills to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm not trying to harp on anybody in particular or anything like that, but I think it's becoming a larger trend in today's society where we don't expect anything of our children, and we don't we coddle the coddling of the American mind. We coddle them to a point where they can't do anything on their own anymore. Mm-hmm. And they are too reliant on the technology that is available today. Yeah. And sure, yeah, we can order the pizza online. That's great, and that's sometimes more convenient and sometimes maybe necessary. I don't know. But it's still important for our children to be able to know the process and to be able to do it on their own. Yeah. How are we going to, like, set them up for adulthood if we aren't teaching them as children?
Yeah.
You know?
I totally agree. I think we're doing a huge, like, we as, like, the
society.
Society doing a huge disservice by not requiring things of kids. Because if you do, like, quote unquote protect them from this mm-hmm. all these different, like, types of discomfort as a child, then, like, what are they like, they just have to experience all of that discomfort all at once they turn 18. Mm-hmm. Like, that sounds horrible. Mm-hmm. That just, like, you have to, like, make your first ever phone call, you have to get your first ever job, you have to do whatever else, all these firsts for the first time ever when you're 18 and you, like, move out of your parents' house. Mm-hmm. Like, no wonder society is struggling. No mm-hmm. wonder these young kids are having so much anxiety and depression and all these mental health problems, is because there's been no stressors in their lives to help them build up to a place of independence mm-hmm. where they're able to do quote unquote basic adult things. Right.
And something I appreciate about my parents, so I had gone to kindergarten through 8th grade with the same school, and so essentially the same group of friends, same people, everything. Then high school happened, and half of us went to one high school, half of us went to another. And it was a really, really, really challenging time for me. I did not enjoy high school, and it was just kind of shocking. It was like a shock to my system because a lot of my friends started doing different activities and different, like, sports and things like that, and I wasn't interested in those things, so, like, we just kind of fell away from each other. No, like, big drama fest or anything, but just, you know, friends, like, losing touch. And I wasn't, like, prepared for it, and I wasn't okay with it. And so to get away from the pain of all of that, I wanted to be homeschooled, and I begged my parents over and over to, like, homeschool me. And then this is not knocking homeschooling, but my parents knew that they couldn't, like, homeschooling me wasn't gonna be the best environment. Yeah, it wasn't gonna solve my problems, and it wasn't gonna be the best environment for me because they couldn't provide what I wanted in homeschooling.
Would have been putting you in a cast.
Right. Exactly. And they didn't do that. As much as I begged for it and cried for it, they wouldn't do it. And high school was still a hard experience, and I did make some friends here and there, and I didn't come to love high school. And that's okay.
That's okay.
But I think they were formative years for me, and I learned a lot of things in that time. And I guess at the end of the day, my point is that we shouldn't always give in to the pleas and the cries of our children. And, of course, within reason. You know what I mean? We are parents. We're not parents yet, but but you know what I mean? Parents know their children, and they can have an understanding as parents of what is best for their children. And I think that's what my parents saw in that situation. They knew that what I wanted wasn't what I needed. So Yeah, I don't know. At the end of it all, I am, like, probably one of the first people to say, no, please don't, like, give me the hard experience. I want to get out of it. I don't want to deal with that. It's too yucky and painful and gross, and it makes me sad and blah, blah, blah. All the reasons in the world. But I don't know. I've come to realize that you have to have these experiences to learn and grow, just as we've been talking about. But also, what helps you get through it is having a long-term perspective. Mm-hmm. When I'm too focused on the short term, on the problem itself or the hardship itself, I'm much more likely to, if I'm focused on the short term and the problem, then I'm much more likely to want to just get out of it as quick as possible, in any way possible. But if I have the long-term perspective and the understanding of that this is going to help me in some way, I'm going to learn from something within this, and I will become a better person, a stronger person in some capacity because of it. Mm-hmm. That helps me to endure in the little trials.
Yeah. I think that perspective, too, also helps you to actually grow more because of the trial. Because if you sit in the trial and you're just complaining and hating about, like, you're just hating it the whole time, it's kind of like sitting in the cast and not doing anything. Yeah. And not, like, doing PT, not going swimming, whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you go through the hard thing and you are willing to put in the work to do the physical therapy and whatever else, like, I think that long-term perspective you're talking about actually helps us to grow more. So it's like being positive about the hard things helps you gain more out of it. So, like, why would you not do that? Mm-hmm. Because, like, otherwise you're not gonna be as well off, I guess. Yeah,
I think you're totally right. Like, would I rather get through this begrudgingly, or would I rather do it with, like, a positive outlook? Because that changes how you're handling the trial too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If I'm just, like, being dragged by my hair through it, that's gonna be really hard. Yeah. But if I have the long-term perspective and I'm more positive about what this will do for me, I think the trials are a little bit easier. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, even think about, like, literally, like, getting dragged. Like, if you're, like, on a hike, right? And somebody's literally dragging you by your hair on the hike. Yeah. You're gonna, like, have so many scratches, cuts, bruises, like, that are so unnecessary. But if you get up and you walk on your legs, your legs are going to be sore, but they're not going to be cut up, and your legs are going to be stronger at the end.
Yeah, and you can look at the trees around you, and you can look at the birds in the sky, and talk to your friends on the hike, Right. There's a lot more that can happen within a trial when you have a clearer, more positive outlook about it.
Yeah, love it. Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Well, Savannah, who would you recommend this book to, and why?
Oh, I would say, like, everyone for different reasons. I would recommend it to parents just to kind of help them understand how important challenges are for their child's development. I would recommend it to Gen Z, especially younger Gen Z. And what's the one after? Is it Gen Alpha? Yeah, the rising generation right now.
Whatever you say.
I think it's Gen Alpha. So younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha, I would recommend it to them too. To just kind of get an understanding for themselves of why challenges are okay and are good things for them.
Yeah, I love that. All right. And then what would you invite our audience to do based off of what you've learned from this book?
I would say make an effort to have that long-term perspective. It makes a difference, as we just, like, explored and talked about over and over again. But it makes a difference in the weight that you feel from the trials that you experience.
Yeah. I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
I guess I would just add that this, like, our conversation here is just one aspect of what goes on in the coddling of the American mind. There's a lot more that goes into it. As I mentioned earlier, like, the idea freedom of speech, freedom of, like, different opinion is being under attack and is not, like, widely accepted in today's society, especially in, like, collegiate environments. So yeah, this conversation has just been one aspect of the book, but there's so much more that goes into it, and so I recommend it to explore all those reasons too.
Gotta read it to find out the rest, I guess. Alrighty, well, thank you, Savannah, for being on the podcast with me today. I really appreciate your time and your insights. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, and to our audience, thank you so much for joining us today on By the Book. We hope that you've enjoyed your time. The link to the book on Amazon and Audible will be in the show notes. Let us know in the comments if you end up reading the book and your main takeaways. Next week's podcast will be released at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on Tuesday. Please also leave a comment below of other books you would like to hear about in the future or guests you think we should have on. You can also follow us on Instagram at By the Book with Katie for updates and more info on these great books and our incredible guests. We'll see you next time.